This is no BS, all NBA, and today I'm going to talk about who I think are the top 10 best NBA players of all time. This is not my favorite players of all time, but of course this is a subjective list. Nobody's gonna, everybody's gonna come up with a different list, especially if we going all the way up to top 10. Once we get to like the bottom three, people usually have the same people, and then it's just a different order. So this is my list. I'm trying to be as respectful as possible to all these great players. Every player on this list is a great player, and I'm not trying to take away from any of these players. And the first player I got, who is to me the 10th best player of all time, is the Celtics legend Bill Russell. Bill Russell has an insane 11-12 finals record. He's a 5-time MVP, 12-time All-Star, 4-time rebound champion, and he did all that in just 13 seasons. I mean, Bill Russell's kind of like the Zeus legend that we all hear about, him and Will Chamberlain, man. It's just like people will never break Will Chamberlain's records, and nobody's ever gonna break Bill Russell's record as winning 11 championships. And if you go back and you watch Bill Russell, man, he was a freak. A lot of people say, oh, he only did that because he was playing against small white guys. Go watch him, man. That guy was a freak. I saw a clip of him jumping over a guy, like it was him running, like he was 6'10", and he was fast as hell, man. You guys can't sleep on these legends. And when you say things like, well, the athletes are better today, they're better today because they have better technology. Just imagine if a guy like Bill Russell had the same training technology that LeBron James has, or Will Chamberlain. So I have Bill Russell at number 10. Number 9, a lot of people are going to say this is blasphemy, but I have another Celtics legend in Larry Bird. Larry Bird has a 3-5 finals record. He is a 2-time finals MVP, 3-time MVP, 12-time All-Star, and he did all that in 13 seasons. Like I said, I'm 25 years old. Of course, I wasn't watching basketball in the 80s, but I'm a history buff. I love history, and that includes basketball. So once I started watching basketball, man, the first thing I really did was, man, let me learn about these greats. And I would watch Larry Bird, and he's like, man, this is the only white guy that I'm watching that could actually, can't just go toe to toe with these other black players, but he's just as good, if not better. And if you watch Larry Bird, man, his passes, you go back and watch his highlights, man, I don't think I've seen a forward pass that good, besides LeBron James. His passes were amazing. His shot taking was amazing. His trash talking was amazing. Just, if you haven't seen Larry Bird, you should go back and watch him. And to me, I think Larry Bird is one of those players that would have been better today, because they wouldn't have been able to whip his ass like they were doing back in the day. They were roughing Bird up, and the 3-point shot is so much more emphasis on the 3-point shot, and he was a great 3-point shooter. Larry Bird today, even without new technology, he would have been one of the top players in the NBA. And if he had the technology that they had today, his back problems probably wouldn't have been as bad, and we definitely would have got more than 13 seasons out of Larry Bird. And I think that's one of the biggest travesties, is that we only got 13 seasons out of one of those greats. But this, just like Bill Russell, to do all that, go to 5 finals, win 3 championships, 3 MVPs in 13 years, that's insane. A lot of people don't even, a lot of legends, look at CP3. CP3 is in like, what, year 15, 16, and he just made it to the finals for the first time in his career. So that says a lot to me. Number 8 is Will Chamberlain. Do I really have to say anything else, man? Will Chamberlain pretty much is the record book. He pretty much owns every record in the record book, and nobody's going to be able to beat those records, man. Will Chamberlain has a 2-4 finals record. He's a 1-time finals MVP, a 13-time All-Star, 7-time scoring champion. He was even an assist leader. And again, he did all this in just 14 seasons. Will Chamberlain broke every record book in the record in just 14 seasons. A lot of people talk about how Michael Jordan only played 15 seasons. Well, everybody in this list that I have so far has played less seasons than Michael Jordan, and you can argue that Bill Russell is just as accomplished as Michael Jordan, and Larry Bird and Wilt Chamberlain aren't that far behind. You know, Wilt Chamberlain is probably the strongest player that ever played in the NBA. If you go back and you listen to the stories how he would dunk the ball and literally break people's feet or take people up with him. You know, and he was a master of other sports, man. He ran track and field. He did the high jump, 7'1". You know, I've seen it. It's insane. Wilt Chamberlain was a freak athlete, and in my opinion, I think Wilt Chamberlain is probably the most athletic, freakish player in the history of the NBA. And if he played today, I think he would have been the greatest player of all time. Nobody would have been able to stop him. I know people say, oh, it's not a big man game. Nobody would have been able to stop Wilt Chamberlain. He's too big, he's too strong, he's too fast. And in today's game, players treat their bodies differently. Wilt Chamberlain went out partying, smoking, all type of things. Today, Wilt Chamberlain would have been even more dominant, I think, than he was back then. Number 7 on my list is the great Tim Duncan. Tim Duncan, and this is the first legend that I actually on my list that I actually got to watch play live. They called him the Big Fundamental, and he was 5-1 in the NBA Finals. 5-1. You know, that's almost Jordan. I mean, if Ray Allen hadn't hit that shot, you know, I don't think that he would have probably gotten 6 rings, but he definitely would have been 5-0 in the NBA Finals. He was a 3-time Finals MVP, a 2-time MVP, 15-time All-Star, and he did that in 19 seasons. You know, Tim Duncan came in the league in the late 90s. He came in winning immediately. Won the NBA title in 1999 after Jordan left. Won again in 2003. Won it again in 2007. Did it again in 2014. It's like the Spurs was the dynasty that wouldn't go away, and Tim Duncan was the anchor that kept them moving. And you really can't take that from him, man. Tim Duncan dominated 3 eras of basketball. In 3 different eras of basketball, he was just as efficient. And even in his older years, man, Tim Duncan was still a great player. When they won that last ring, Tim Duncan was still a great player. Number 6 on my list, and this is when it really started to get hard for me putting these numbers together. And this was really hard, man. But number 6 to me is Shaq. Shaq is 4-2 in the NBA Finals. He is a 3-time Finals MVP, a 1-time MVP. He is a 2-time scoring title champion, and he did all that in 19 seasons. To me, it's either Wilt Chamberlain or Shaq, the most dominant forces in the history of the NBA, and you really can't argue with that. To me, there's no other argument, and I think I might give it to Shaq. I'm going to give it to Wilt Chamberlain because I think Wilt did it over an extended period of time. But if you look at those 3 years where the Lakers were winning the championships, there was nothing like that in the history of the NBA. Nothing. I don't care. I don't care. We're talking about LeBron James, Michael Jordan, Wilt Chamberlain, Magic Johnson. If you tell me pick a player to put on your team to make sure you don't lose, give me Shaq from 2000. There's no defense for that. Give me Shaq from the year 2000. There's nobody that could beat him to me. And number 5 was Shaq's partner in crime, Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant was 5-2 in the NBA Finals. He had 5 championships. You know, him and Shaq, they got the first 3-peat since Jordan Bulls. And besides Jordan Bulls, that was the only 3-peat going back to Bill Russell's Celtics. And there hasn't been a 3-peat since Shaq and Kobe and the Lakers did that back in 2000, 2001, and 2002. Kobe was also a 2-time Finals MVP. He was also an NBA MVP. He was an 18-time All-Star. He was a 2-time scoring champion, and he did that in 20 seasons. And really, he did it in like 17 seasons because those last few seasons, Kobe wasn't Kobe. And to me, Kobe was my first favorite player, man, in watching basketball. Kobe it was just exciting, man. Even before I even watched basketball, I liked Kobe Bryant. He had that personality, man, that attracted you to him, like his game. He was aggressive at all times, and he took it serious, man. You knew if you were watching Kobe Bryant play, you weren't getting cheated. He was going to give it his all. He was going to try to win that game no matter what. To me, Kobe Bryant is the most spectacular player in the history of the NBA. And I think you can argue Jordan, but give me Kobe Bryant, man. The things that Kobe Bryant did, he probably wasn't as efficient as Jordan, but to me, Kobe Bryant is the most spectacular player in the NBA history, and he is the 5th best player in the NBA. Number 4, we're starting to get down to the Mount Rushmore. Number 4, the 4th best player of all time, to me, Magic Johnson. Magic Johnson was 5-4 in the NBA Finals. He was a 3-time Finals MVP, a 3-time MVP, a 12-time All-Star, a 4-time assist leader, a 2-time steals leader, and he did all that in 13 seasons. To me, I think Magic Johnson and his HIV diagnosis is one of the biggest, what ifs in NBA history. What if Magic Johnson was able to play 20 seasons? To me, I think if Magic Johnson would have been able to play 20 seasons, he probably would have been the greatest of all time. Magic Johnson already had 5 championships when he retired. He went to another, he had already been to 9 finals. The record's 12, so he had 13 seasons. I think we could have gotten at least, Magic was only like 32. We could have gotten at least 4 or 5 more productive years out of Magic. Imagine if Shaq came to the Lakers. We were 1 year away from getting that when Magic came back, when Magic was still there. Just the whole NBA's landscape would have been changed if it wasn't for Magic Johnson getting HIV. And the fact that he was still able to do all that. He played 13 seasons. 9 of those seasons, he went to the NBA Finals. He won the Finals MVP as a rookie. I mean, nobody's done that since, and I don't know if anybody's going to be able to do that again. And if somebody did that today, man, it would be the biggest thing in the world. So, to me, Magic Johnson is the greatest point guard of all time. If you look at the passes Magic Johnson would do, there's nobody that could pass like Magic. Even LeBron, man, nobody can pass like Magic. If you're open, it doesn't matter where you are on the court, Magic Johnson's going to get you that ball. And to me, that's why Magic Johnson is not only the greatest point guard of all time, but the 4th greatest player of all time. Now, this next pick is where I think things are going to be controversial. But this is my opinion. And I think the 3rd greatest player in NBA history is none other than King James, LeBron James, the 3rd best player in NBA history. LeBron is 4-6 in the NBA Finals. He is a 4-time Finals MVP. He is a 4-time MVP. He is a 17-time All-Star. He is an NBA scoring champion, an NBA assist leader, and he has done all this in 18 seasons, and he's still counting. LeBron James is the only person on this list who is still updating his resume. And that right there is the key thing. I feel like LeBron speaks from himself. We're all watching. We all see LeBron. Best player in the last 20 years. It's not even arguable to me. You can argue Kobe, but I think it's not that much of an argument, man. LeBron James in year 19 is still top 2-3 players in the world. I right now rank LeBron James as the 3rd best player in the world behind Kevin Durant and Giannis Antetokounmpo. And maybe you can say Kawhi Leonard, but he's injured right now. And you got to update your resume, Kawhi. I'm sorry to say. But that's why, to me, LeBron James, 3rd greatest player of all time. Now, this next one might be the most controversial thing on my list, but I'm not doing this to be controversial. I really think this. The 2nd best player of all time, Michael Jeffrey Jordan. Michael Jordan is 6-0 in the NBA Finals. He is a 6-time Finals MVP, a 5-time MVP. He had 10 scoring titles, and I believe they were all consecutive. I mean, that's insane to have. I mean, like right now we're watching James Harden. To me, James Harden is the highest volume scorer in the league. And I can't even imagine him going 10 straight years, or just 10 years period, as the NBA scoring champion. Michael was a defensive player of the year. He was only one of 3 players to win defensive player of the year and MVP in the same year. And he did all this in 15 seasons. And really, he did it in 13 seasons, because in the only thing that the Wizards years did was add to his All-Star game appearances. All those other stats were done in 13 seasons. And to me, that is the only reason why Michael Jordan is not the greatest player of all time, is because his career is really just 13 seasons. And I find it hard when I compare him to my number one, and I think it's pretty obvious who my number one is at this point. It was hard for me to give him number one, but because I think my number one did achieve more in his career. But if I'm going to isolate a prime, if I'm going to isolate skill set, Michael Jordan is the best player to ever play basketball. And I don't even think it's really that much of a debate. But to me, when we're talking about the greatest player of all time, it's not just about how good of a player you were. It's about what were you able to do with those skills that you have. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of players, you know, that you can argue was better than this player. For example, Russell Westbrook might end up achieving more than Derrick Rose did. And throughout his entire career, Russell Westbrook is a better player than Derrick Rose. But if we're going to isolate primes, Derrick Rose was a better player in his prime, in his short prime, than Russell Westbrook was in his prime. And that is why I have to give my number one spot to the captain, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Kareem is 6-4 in the NBA Finals. He was a two-time Finals MVP, a 6-time regular season MVP, which is a record, a 19-time All-Star, which is a record, top 10 in blocks, top 10 in rebounds and points. He's the number 1 in points. He is the oldest Finals MVP in history. He has the biggest gap in between Finals MVP, when you win your first and last Finals MVP. He won his first one in 1971 and won his last one in 1987. He played 20 seasons in the NBA. Kareem's final game in the NBA was in the NBA Finals. I mean, besides them losing that Finals and him getting his 7th ring, it doesn't get more perfect than that. Kareem has just as many rings as Jordan, even though I'll say he wasn't the focal point of those rings, like all those rings like Jordan was. He was the best player on 3 of those. For three of his championship rings, at least, he was the best player. When he won the ring in with the Bucks, he was the best player. The first championship with the Lakers, he was the best player. But Magic won Finals MVP because Kareem was injured in the final game. And when he won his Finals MVP for the 2nd time, Magic was the overall best player. But in that series, it was Kareem. To me, in his 20 years, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is the most accomplished player in NBA history. Not only that, but he was dominant. He dominated players. Nobody could stop his sky hook. And because of that sky hook, for 20 years, he was able to dominate the NBA. And he didn't just play against scrubs, man. Kareem, I think, was that gap. He played in the gap. He bridged the gap between 2 eras. Not only did Kareem play against guys like Wilt Chamberlain, guys like Dr. J, guys like Jerry West, but Kareem played with guys like Oscar Robertson. But Kareem also played against guys like Hakeem Olajuwon, guys like Michael Jordan, guys like Larry Bird, some of the best players of all time. He was able to bridge that gap, and he was also able to win in multiple eras and dominate for generations, man. 19 years, 20 years to dominate. I think Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is without a doubt the greatest player of all time. This has been No BS, All NBA.